Take the exit. Turn right into the drive-thru.
Nope, I'm making dinner tonight.
You don't have time. Josh has practice.
Oh, that's right. I'll just get a salad.
And fries?
No, just the salad.
But salad cancels fries.
Salad only.
Fries.
Salad.
Fries.
Food noise isn't fair, but Mochi Health is. The affordable GLP-1 source that puts you on the road to successful weight loss.
Hey, can I get the...
Fries.
Salad. Sorry.
Learn more at joinmochi.com. Mochi members have access to licensed physicians and nutritionists. Results may vary.
You know that thing where you get an amazing pair of shoes at a really great price and want to tell everyone about it? Yeah, so do we. Here at Designer Shoe Warehouse, we'll give you something to brag about, like the latest styles from brands you love, or the trends everyone's obsessing over, or shoes that make you feel like, well, you. So go ahead, show off a little. Find shoes that get you at prices that get your budget. Head to your DSW store or DSW.com today. DSW, let us surprise you.
Voices for Justice is a podcast that uses adult language and discusses sensitive and potentially triggering topics, including violence, abuse, and murder. This podcast may not be appropriate for younger audiences. All parties are innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Some names have been changed or omitted per their request or for safety purposes. Listener discretion is advised. My name is Sarah Turney, and this is Voices for Justice. Today, I'm discussing the case of Adrienne Salinas from Tempe, Arizona. In 2013, 19-year-old Adrienne was working hard to become independent and to achieve her goals. She just moved out of her father's house and into her own apartment. She was in college and on track to becoming a journalist. But one bad night changed everything. This is the case of Adrienne Salinas. On the morning of Saturday, June 15, 2013, Rebecca Flores and Shani Duggan began to clean up their apartment from a party they had the night before. Probably the biggest party they've had since moving in. It was one of Rebecca's friends' birthdays, and things definitely got out of control. There were about 40 people there, mostly college kids, their peers. And at some point in the night/morning, their TV got broken, and someone took an ottoman outside and lit it on fire. It seems like the party was pretty crazy. Their third roommate, 19-year-old Adrienne Salinas, wasn't there to help clean up. But she didn't really contribute to the mess anyway. She was fighting with her boyfriend Fran and left the party a few times. So Shani and Rebecca assume that she's just with him. But Adrienne's father, Rick Salinas, was already growing concerned. He called Adrienne several times to confirm their plans for the next day, Father's Day. But his calls are going straight to voicemail. He's worried, but he and Adrienne are really close. Rick basically raised Adrienne and her younger brother as a single father. He was always super involved in their lives, and they spoke nearly every day. So he knows that there's just no way that Adrienne wouldn't be in touch for Father's Day. She'd only recently moved into this apartment with her two friends. And Rick was always over there making sure that they were doing things like locking the doors, being safe, and that they had food in their pantry. Typical dad stuff. So really, Adrienne's kind of in this in-between stage of finding her independence but still relying on her dad for support. Again, Rick is worried, but he just assumes that he'll hear from Adrienne the next day when she comes over for a Father's Day barbecue that he planned. But Sunday comes, and there's still no call or text from Adrienne. And all calls are still going straight to voicemail. By 10 a.m., Rick knows that something must be wrong, and he begins calling her friends. When Shani gets the call, she's shocked that Rick hasn't heard from Adrienne, and she knows that something must be wrong too. She explains that she hasn't heard from Adrienne since the night of the party, but assumed that she spent the night at Fran's. So, naturally, Rick calls Fran, and he says he hadn't seen her since the night of the party either. Rick immediately calls 911 to report Adrienne missing. He tells them that this isn't like Adrienne. She was a college student and typically very responsible. She had plans of transferring to Arizona State University to become a journalist. She wasn't just off partying. Something was wrong. Now, it does seem that the Tempe Police Department does initially treat Adrienne's case as a typical college student who just didn't turn up but probably would. Tempe is a college town, and they see kids leave for the weekend all the time. They were sure Adrienne would turn up. But Rick's not just going to wait around for the police to do something. He calls Fran and they go look for Adrienne themselves. Rick has known Fran since he was just a kid, about 12 years old when he and Adrienne became inseparable in middle school. They've dated off and on since then. So, naturally, he asks for his help in searching for Adrienne. They begin driving all around the neighborhood and pretty quickly find Adrienne's white 2002 Mercury Sable. There's some damage, and 2 of her tires are flat. But inside the car, there's no blood or any sign of a struggle. It's really just an odd scene. Clearly, the car had been crashed, but Adrienne wasn't with it. Officers from the Tempe Police Department do come down to the scene. They take some photos, and then they leave. At this point, they say that they just don't have any reason to believe that foul play was involved with Adrienne's disappearance. So they release the car to her father, including a BlackBerry cell phone and notebook that was found in the front seat. But now that they've found her car, the Tempe Police Department does begin digging into what they know about Adrienne's disappearance. So, of course, they want to talk to her boyfriend. Standard operating procedure. Sergeant Alan Akey finds him on Monday, June 17th, while he's hanging up missing person flyers for Adrienne. He says he just wants to ask him a few questions. Fran goes down to the station willingly and explains that he and Adrienne had dated off and on since they were kids, but right now they technically weren't together. They had a fight at the party because Adrienne saw him whispering into another girl's ear and she really didn't like that. But the party was pretty wild, so they decided to go to his apartment in Scottsdale to talk it out there. Witnesses would later confirm that they were seen leaving the party together. We don't know exactly where Fran's place is in Scottsdale, but it's not far from Tempe, maybe 15 minutes depending on where you are. They get to Fran's around 2:30 a.m. They continue their argument, and at one point, Fran steps out to his patio to cool down. And when he gets back inside, Adrienne is gone. At about 3 a.m., he gets in his car to go look for her. He does find her, and he begins driving her back home to Tempe. But Adrienne's still upset, and she ends up getting out of the car on Mill Avenue at approximately 3:20 a.m. She starts walking the rest of the way home. Fran says that they were mid-conversation, and without saying a word, Adrienne just got out of the car. But Fran does call Adrienne's roommate to tell them that she was walking home and to please make sure that she made it home safe. Fran says this is the last time he saw Adrienne. But he did have 11 missed calls from Adrienne about an hour later while he was asleep. She also texted him at 4:43 a.m. to say that she was coming over, but she never made it. This episode of Voices for Justice is brought to you by Quince. I've been trying to be more intentional about what I wear each day. I'm leaning into pieces that feel effortless, comfortable, and still put together, and Quince has been my go-to. The fabrics feel elevated, the fits are flattering, and everything just works without overthinking it. They use premium materials like 100% European linen, organic cotton, and ultra-soft denim. And the best part? Everything is priced 50 to 80% less than similar brands. They work directly with ethical factories and cut out the middlemen, so you're paying for quality and craftsmanship, not brand markup. I recently just ordered their tiered linen dress, of course in black. I wanted to pair it with one of my favorite pairs of brown wedges. The problem was, I didn't have a brown purse. So I got that from Quince too. It's one of my favorite outfits. It's easy, effortless, and feels amazing, especially as we're getting a little bit warmer here in Phoenix. Refresh your everyday with luxury you'll actually use. Head to quince.com/justice for free shipping on your order and 365-day returns. Now available in Canada too. That's QUINCE.com/justice for free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/justice. This episode of Voices for Justice is sponsored by Chewy. If you have pets, you probably know about Chewy, and you also know that when they say that they have everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy, they're not messing around. To keep them happy, Chewy has over 100,000 products from all the brands my pets love at prices I love. To keep them healthy, Chewy offers pet prescriptions, pet insurance, telehealth vet visits, and they're even rolling out vet clinics across the country. I've been shopping with them for a very long time. And in addition to the auto ship feature that gets the dogs food to them every single month, I also love to experiment with different treats. But I'm a bit picky. For me, it has to be high quality with simple ingredients. I recently picked up treats from Shepherd Boy Farms that are 100% just chicken breast. Popcorn and Heber are already obsessed. Chewy has everything you need to keep your pet happy and healthy. And right now, you can save $20 on your first order and get free shipping by going to chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. That's chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney to save $20 on your first order with free shipping. chewpanions.chewy.com/SarahETurney. Minimum purchase required. New customers only. Terms and conditions apply. See site for complete details. The Tempe PD is able to get some of Adrienne's cell phone records right away. And through those, and interviewing her roommates and other partygoers, they're able to put together a timeline of her whereabouts for that night. Here's what we know. The party started at about 10 p.m. Since it was Rebecca's friend's birthday, she's really the one hosting the party alone at first, until Shani gets home from work. Shani goes upstairs and is surprised to see that Adrienne is in full hair and makeup for the party, but just sitting on her bed looking kind of sad. So she asks her what's wrong, and Adrienne says that she's just not feeling social. They do talk it through a bit, but in the end decide that the party's gonna happen either way, so all Adrienne can really do is try to have some fun. Their apartment, or townhouse as some of Adrienne's friends have called it, was 2 stories, and seemed to have a good amount of room for a bunch of college-age kids for space. But with 40 people there doing things like breaking TVs and setting ottomans on fire, I imagine that there was really no escape for Adrienne, even in her room. So she goes downstairs to the kitchen to have a drink with Shani. They talk and take a picture together. Adrienne did also invite Fran to come over, and he does. But like I told you earlier, they do end up fighting about their relationship. Adrienne wants them to be exclusive, and Fran wants to date other people. They move the fight to his place in Scottsdale at about 2:30 a.m., and Adrienne begins walking home around 3:20 in the morning. Now, Adrienne does make it home safely. She talks to Rebecca, charges her phone, packs an overnight bag, and leaves again around 3:40 a.m. to go to Fran's. Multiple witnesses see Adrienne get into her car and leave. We don't know exactly how intoxicated she may have been, but we do know that she had at least one drink with Shani earlier in the night. A few minutes after Adrienne leaves the party, a 911 call is made at 3:44 a.m. They report that a white sedan sped past them and hit a curb, damaging 2 tires. The caller is concerned, and they leave their vehicle to go check on the driver, but they speed away. The caller is never able to identify the driver, but they did write down the license plate. It was Adrienne's car. It seems that whoever was driving the car, likely Adrienne considering the timing, fled the scene and parked the car where Rick and Fran found it on Sunday. But this isn't where Adrienne's trail ends. She goes back home. Now, no one sees her do this, though. The police only know that Adrienne went home at some point because the clothes she was wearing in that picture with Shani was later found in her room along with the only key to her car. So they think that she came home to change her clothes before attempting to make her way back to Fran's. Adrienne ends up making over 40 calls to Fran that night that he does not answer. But again, she does text him at 4:43 a.m. to say that she's going back to his apartment. She leaves, but this time there are no witnesses. But investigators did also find Adrienne's wallet, ID, and bank card at home as well. And they found that she had almost no money in her bank account, which makes this next part really strange. You're probably wondering how Adrienne is going to make it to Fran's house with 2 damaged tires. Well, despite her bank account and her friends also confirming that she has no money, Adrienne ends up calling a cab service. Scottsdale Cab Guys. The driver says that he's about 30 minutes away, but she's on his way home, so he's happy to pick her up. They agree to meet at an AM/PM gas station about a quarter mile from Adrienne's apartment. One of the many mysteries in this case is why this was the agreed-upon pickup location versus her apartment. But according to the driver, Thomas Simon Jr., this is where Adrienne told him to go. According to reporting from SantanValley.com, surveillance video from an O'Reilly Auto Parts near the AM/PM gas station captures a slender woman, possibly Adrienne, walking through the parking lot at 4:52 a.m. The last call made from Adrienne's phone is to this cab service 1 minute later at 4:53 a.m. According to Simon, Adrienne called to confirm that he was still on his way, and he says that he's 8 minutes out. 1 minute after that, at 4:54 a.m., a dark, four-door vehicle is seen driving through the O'Reilly's Auto Parts parking lot. Just after 5 a.m., Simon's cab is seen pulling into the AM/PM, but Adrienne isn't there. He waits and he tries to call her, but says it goes straight to voicemail. So he leaves. 14 minutes after Adrienne made the call to Simon, by 5:07 a.m., her phone was either dead or turned off.
Insurance isn't one size fits all. That's why customers have enjoyed Progressive's Name Your Price tool for years now. With the Name Your Price tool, you tell them what you want to pay, and they'll show you options that fit your budget. So whether you're picking out your first policy or just looking for something that works better for you and your family, they make it easy to see your options. Visit Progressive.com. Find a rate that works for you with the Name Your Price tool. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
What they did to your family, you're lucky to make it out alive.
Streaming on Peacock.
These men are going to come after me. Taking them out is my only chance.
Put a bullet in her head.
From the co-creator of Ozark.
Looks like a family was running drugs.
Execution-style killing, it's rare for the keys. And it leads on who they might have been running for.
The cartel killed my family. I'm gonna kill them. All of them.
MIA. Streaming now. Only on Peacock.
After getting these records and going through this timeline, police realized that they made a big mistake by not taking her car in for processing, and especially by not taking the phone found in her vehicle. So they make arrangements to get Adrienne's car back from her family the day after it was released to them. In terms of what testing was done on the car, that is unclear. It may be something investigators are keeping private in order to get a prosecution down the line. But there's a major problem when they get it back. The notebook and cell phone that were in the front seat are both gone. Now, they do end up confirming with Adrienne's mom that she has the notebook, but the cell phone has never been recovered. I will say that investigators never outright say that this was Adrienne's cell phone, so I can't say for sure if it was. They only say that her phone was never found and that they're still looking for it. But let's break this down, because I think it's pretty key in this case. We know that she used her phone to call the cab company after the accident was reported to police. So if it is Adrienne's phone, that means that she returned to her car at some point that night after talking to the cab driver and left it there. If it wasn't her phone, that means that someone else was likely in her car that night. I mean, the only other scenarios I can think of is maybe somebody accidentally putting it in there or Adrienne randomly stealing someone's phone. And those both seem really unlikely. But of course, the question here is, what happened to it? Unfortunately, as of recording this episode, the police don't have that information. All they know is that her last call was made to Thomas Simon Jr. of Scottsdale Cab Guys. And after pinging near her apartment, it never makes a connection again. So, of course, they track this guy down. And this company is family-owned, actually by Simon's father, Thomas Simon Sr. So the Tempe Police Department gets them both on the phone to talk about what happened. And this is really weird. Thomas Sr. is in his office, but Thomas Jr. is currently driving passengers to the Grand Canyon. For context, this is over a 3-hour drive from Scottsdale, Tempe, and Phoenix. So it's a long drive for him and these passengers that are likely overhearing this conversation. Again, it's just super weird. But father and son are both on the call. Thomas Jr. remembers the call from Adrienne. He says he was supposed to pick her up at the AM/PM gas station, but she never showed, and that she didn't answer her phone when he called, so he left. And video surveillance confirms that he was at the gas station when he said, and that Adrienne was not with him. She was never seen at the AM/PM that night. So they begin to focus on the possibility that something happened to Adrienne between calling the cab and never making it to the gas station. Maybe she was abducted. Maybe by that car that was right behind her in the parking lot. They do explore the possibility that she just accepted a ride from the wrong person, but her friends insist that she would never get into a stranger's car without a fight. So they continue looking for Adrienne. On June 17th, they search Tempe Town Lake for her remains, but the search comes up empty. They try looking into that car that was seen in the parking lot, but they are never able to identify the car or the driver. Of course, during all of this, Adrienne's friends and family are worried sick, and they do everything they can to find her. They're passing out flyers, hanging them around town, knocking on doors, doing fundraisers, and putting up rewards. But pretty quickly, investigators get a call that puts the spotlight right back on Thomas Simon Jr. It's actually from the woman he was driving to the Grand Canyon while he was speaking with police. The whole thing, understandably, really freaked her out, and she says that he seemed extremely uncomfortable when speaking with them. But it's not only that. Apparently, during this ride, he pulls over, goes to the trunk, and for some reason pulls out what she thinks is a saw. Now, he never threatened her with it. She just sees him with it. She did make it safely to the Grand Canyon, but obviously felt that she needed to report this to police. So they go right back to Thomas Simon Jr., and he's cooperative, at first. They speak with him, they look around his apartment and his cab and don't find anything. No word on the saw. But when he's asked to take a polygraph, he refuses, saying he doesn't believe in them. They are able to obtain his cell phone records at some point, though, and it shows that his phone did ping in Tempe. But after this, he didn't have service for 12 hours following his calls with Adrienne. Investigators say outright that it was turned off. So this is definitely suspicious. Investigators do get a warrant to obtain DNA from Simon, and he is not happy about it. He starts cursing and kicking and kind of moving the chairs in the room.
Can you take these off, please? Just have a seat. I haven't hurt nobody. Please take these off. First, I need you to sit down. I just want you to take these off, man. Just sit down for me. All right? Or what? You gonna hurt me? Absolutely not. Everything that happens from here on out depends on you. Okay? I understand that you might be upset at us. Okay? You guys are liars. Just listen. And just let me finish speaking. You're hurting somebody for no reason. I don't get it. Just let me finish speaking. I would never hurt anybody. I would only hurt myself. Okay? But if you haven't already seen that, I don't want you to hurt yourself either. I will hurt myself because now I'm getting treated like, and I don't like it. You're not under arrest. You're detained, right? Why would you detain me? And I'll get to that here in a second. I'd like to get you dressed. I want to get to it quickly. I've got a life to live, man. And you'll get on to living your life. I don't speak pig Latin. You guys suck, man.
That's my DNA. You don't deserve it. I'm very pissed off about that. Why should you get my DNA?
Get it with the judge.
The judge doesn't know me. The judge is not my judge.
So?
Somebody did something to this poor girl when you guys have been screwing with the taxi driver that got a phone call.
Can you open your mouth?
That's a violation.
How is that a violation?
He just stuck something in my mouth. Something that belongs to me. It doesn't matter. That's not right. Why did you take a DNA sample?
Okay. We took a DNA sample from you as an investigative measure.
If I'm not a suspect, then why can you take away my stuff? Something that belongs to me.
You don't have to be a suspect.
Why is in America are we not free that you can take my DNA? You're a creature. I hate you. Hate that mother. That sounds right. Let me go. Itchy.
You're free to go.
Hey, all of you, man. Then take something that belongs to me. Because I picked up or tried to pick up a girl and missed her. No, I never did. I wish I did, though. Because then she'd be saved.
At this point, he basically stops cooperating. But investigators do continue to keep an eye on him. And not long after this, they get another call about Thomas Simon Jr. It's a woman who reports that her cousin told her that they heard a woman screaming inside of Simon's apartment. Not only that, but it sounded like the woman's screams were being muffled. And once his neighbor turned down his music, Simon's turned his up even louder.
Well, when I went to visit one of my cousins, I'm not quite sure if they were working on the apartment next door on the outside of the apartment, and he heard like a woman scream. And he heard like if somebody was trying to shut up the lady, but they weren't quite sure. As soon as they lowered down their music, the neighbor, the taxi driver's house, like he hired up his music full blast. And I said, "Are you sure that's what you heard, like a woman screaming?" And he was like, "Yeah, a woman screaming desperately."
Again, Thomas Simon Jr. is over this. He slams his door in the face of investigators when they come back to question him. And the woman who called in the tip, well, they apparently can't ever get a hold of her again. So these leads, this evidence, just sits as they continue their investigation. Now, again, police are keeping a lot of information about Adrienne's case private, but it doesn't seem that much happens over the next few weeks, until her remains are found on August 6th. I know, it's not the news any of us wanted. That morning, Dan Kelly is driving through a wash on his property in Apache Junction, Arizona, when he comes across what he thinks are the remains of a coyote. But when he gets closer, he realizes very quickly that the remains are human. He calls 911, police respond, and an autopsy is performed. By the 15th, they tell Adrienne's family and announce to the media that it was her. Rick described this moment in an interview with AZ Family's Unresolved series about Adrienne. He's actually at his parents' house when he gets the news, and he said he felt like he was just gonna faint. But he still had to tell Adrienne's grandparents that she really was gone. So he walks inside, breaks the news to them, and they're all crying together. It's obviously just heartbreaking. Now, we don't know a lot about Adrienne's death or her autopsy. But here's what we do know. The cause and manner of her death are undetermined. There are no obvious signs of trauma. They won't say if they found any foreign DNA on Adrienne, but an investigator has said that there was little evidence found to point to a possible perpetrator. So take that for what you will. Her cranium and 2 vertebrae were missing, but investigators can't say for sure if that was related to her cause of death versus the elements. They do say that there was no indication that tools were used or that she was intentionally decapitated. And here's where it gets tricky. They don't believe that Adrienne was killed in this location, or even originally placed here. They believe she was placed in a shallow grave, the wash flooded, and she was ultimately carried downstream to this final location. For context, Arizona typically gets some pretty bad storms in the summer, and we just aren't equipped for that. When we get heavy rains in the summer during our monsoon season, we flood. Now, don't ask me to explain all the science behind it, but essentially our ground is so dense and typically has a layer of clay under that, so it's just really terrible at absorbing water. Bad infrastructure combined with that causes mass flooding. And just a few weeks before Adrienne's remains were found, that's exactly what happened. Apache Junction specifically was hit really hard. Water was washing cars away, people had to be rescued, it was bad. And the wash Adrienne was found in did flood. Because of all of this, investigators believe that she was buried upstream and washed down to the area that she was ultimately found in. So I think it makes sense why they can't say if she was intentionally decapitated or if her skull is just missing due to being moved during the flooding. But the medical examiner said that her remains were consistent with being in the desert for the entire length of time she was missing, so it's likely she was killed shortly after she went missing. When they announced to the media that Adrienne's remains had been positively identified, Mike Pooley with the Tempe Police Department says that Adrienne's case is being treated as a homicide. But the very next day, he backtracks that statement and says, well, it's not necessarily a homicide, and Adrienne's death has been classified as a suspicious death ever since. Pooley adds, quote, obviously finding her body out in the wash is a big concern, but before we can come out and say it's a homicide, we've got to find out the cause of death, end quote. Multiple law enforcement agencies go out to the wash to search for any evidence related to Adrienne, and they collect a lot. But investigators say that they've been able to rule out most of these items as not being related to her death. It really feels like there's so much evidence at this point. But Adrienne's case doesn't see much movement until 2015, when investigators get another tip. A man calls in to say that his friend and alleged serial killer may be the man they're looking for.
Zootopia 2 has come home to Disney+.
Let's go!
Get ready for a new case.
We're gonna crack this case and prove we're the greatest partners of all time!
New friends.
You are... Gary the Snake. And your last name? The Snake.
Dream Team. And new habitats.
Zootopia has a secret reptile population.
You can watch the record-breaking phenomenon at home.
You're clearly working it.
Zootopia 2, now available on Disney+, rated PG.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile with a message for everyone paying big wireless way too much. Please, for the love of everything good in this world, stop. With Mint, you can get premium wireless for just $15 a month. Of course, if you enjoy overpaying, no judgments, but that's weird. Okay, one judgment. Anyway, give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
Brian Patrick Miller was arrested in January 2015 for the murders of Angela Brasso and Melanie Burness in the early 1990s. Investigators were able to link him to these crimes using DNA, and he was sentenced to death for the murders in June 2023. So when his friend hears about Adrienne's death, he begins to wonder if Miller could be responsible. He ends up digging into his social media and sees that Miller was about a mile away from Adrienne's home on the night she went missing. Now, Brian Patrick Miller is rumored to have killed many people. The Phoenix Police Department has told several families that Miller is responsible for their loved one's death. You may remember that from my episode about Brandy Myers. She went missing in the early 90s. Detective Stuart Summershoe from the Phoenix Police Department is the detective who told me that my father was responsible for my sister's death. And he's the one that told me to get media. He did the same thing to the family of Brandy Myers. He told them that Miller killed Brandy. He confessed to an ex-wife, down to the color of trash bags she was disposed of in. Get media. Unfortunately, they were never able to get that case across the finish line to prosecute. But from what we do know about Miller's MO with Angela Brasso and Melanie Burness, he was just absolutely disgusting and brutal. Something like decapitation would absolutely be his style. But again, we can't confirm that Adrienne was decapitated. And I found conflicting statements from law enforcement as to whether or not they think Adrienne's death is consistent with Miller's other victims. The largest point of contention seems to be that Miller typically attacked his victims with a knife. And while it's possible that he attacked Adrienne and only hit flesh, they do find it unlikely that he wouldn't have hit bone at some point. And there was no indication of that found during Adrienne's autopsy. You probably know what I'm going to say by now, but take that for what you will. I really wish that this was more clear, but this is what the reporting I found says. Investigators do take a look at Brian Patrick Miller, and really don't find much. They do find that his phone pinged in Tempe, but they already knew that he was there. It never pinged in Apache Junction where Adrienne was found. But we do have a statement directly from Miller, thanks to some amazing reporting by Brianna Whitney at AZ Family. She wrote to him and asked about Adrienne. He wrote back, stating in part, quote, "Regarding Salinas, I had no knowledge of this case and still don't know much about it other than someone suggested I could have been involved because I was at a house party nearby that day. If that person had been paying attention, he would have also noted that I was with people we both knew all night. There was no time that I was alone and unaccounted for that day." The person suggesting that has been looking to insert themselves because they have an obsession with murder cases and is looking for attention. He also does not use his real name, even with people he has known for years, and is in possession of an item stolen from me since my arrest. I had no involvement in these or any other case, and have never confessed to any crimes that I am not already being punished for. End quote. Now, normally I'd be pretty hesitant to believe a convicted murderer, especially scum of the earth nerds like Brian Patrick Miller. But Brandy's sister Kristen has been pretty outspoken about how this friend really strung her along about the information he claimed to have about Miller and Brandy's case. So what Miller says seems to be consistent with other experiences. In the end, they say that Miller isn't ruled out, and that no one has been ruled out, but also that no one is an official suspect. And that's pretty much where Adrienne's case is today. Fran lives in Mexico now, and most people that knew him say that he never hurt Adrienne, including Rick. He continues to be cooperative with the investigation. Thomas Simon Jr. is still uncooperative, but he has called the Tempe PD several times to say that they ruined his life, and they still believe that he has information that could help Adrienne's case. Now, a theory that we haven't explored yet is that Adrienne was hurt by someone who was at the party that night. Investigators say that while they've interviewed most of the partygoers, they haven't been able to interview them all, and some do have concerning past. They also say that every male partygoer that was given a polygraph test showed deception. An odd tidbit that I also found in my research is that they found a large number of people whose cell phones pinged near the apartment that night and later in Apache Junction, which for context is about 40 minutes away. They apparently did a massive data dump with cell providers, and they were able to get records from every phone company except T-Mobile. Even with a warrant, they've refused. So that's just another loose end. This is one of those cases where I feel like every theory could be argued in good faith. The cab driver, Brian Patrick Miller, the car that was driving through the parking lot right after Adrienne, someone at the party, or a random stranger abduction and murder. Also, we possibly have 2 outstanding cell phones to be found in this case. Adrienne's phone, and if it wasn't the same BlackBerry photographed in her front seat, a second phone. Which brings me right to our call to action. So much work has been put into investigating what happened to Adrienne Salinas in June 2013. Every angle feels like they just need a little bit more information to crack this case. So please share. It's possible that the BlackBerry is still out there. There are so many avenues that could lead to answers in this case. Adrienne's loved ones deserve answers, and Adrienne deserves justice. As a reminder, 19-year-old Adrienne Salinas went missing from Tempe, Arizona on June 15, 2013. And her remains were found in Apache Junction, Arizona on August 6, 2013. Adrienne is described as Hispanic, with brown hair and brown eyes. She was 5 feet 5 inches tall and weighed 100 to 110 pounds. She had a small tattoo of a tribal sun on her neck, a 4-inch scar on her back, and a lip piercing with a clear stone. The FBI is offering a $20,000 reward for information leading to the identification, arrest, and conviction for the person or persons responsible for Adrienne's death. Anyone with information should contact the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI, or you can submit a tip anonymously online at tips.fbi.gov. You can also call the Tempe Police Department at 480-350-8311. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time. Voices for Justice is hosted and produced by me, Sarah Turney, and is a Voices for Justice media original. If you love what we do here, please don't forget to follow, rate, and review the show in your podcast player. It's an easy and free way to help us and help more people find these cases in need of justice. Welcome to the Secret After Show. The studio door is open and our emotional support puppy Popcorn is in the room. If I'm being totally honest with you guys, Popcorn has been here the entire time. He is not adjusting very well to being an only dog. He does not like being alone, so it is easier, it's less noisier, and he is more comfortable just being in the room. I did have to stop a little bit more, but, it's a hard adjustment period without Marley, so just know that throughout the entire episode, in this episode, and likely for at least a little bit going forward, not only will you have your emotional support puppy Popcorn with you in the after show, but throughout the entire episode. Now, on to what's going on with me. My life hasn't changed much since last week, and I am thankful for that. I am always grateful for an uneventful week. I will say, in terms of what I'm watching and reading, which has been a while since I talked about that because usually it's true crime related and I don't want to give it away. I watched the documentary Yinta on Netflix, and I thought it was amazing. It's about the Wet'suwet'en resistance to basically colonialism in Canada, and specifically them trying to build this. It's called the Coastal GasLink Pipeline. It documents their entire journey over several years to protect their land, and I just found it incredibly moving, educational, and inspiring. So, if you're into just extremely passionate activism, like obviously I am, I do recommend it. Again, that is Yinta on Netflix. But let's move on to Adrienne's case, and I do have a little bit to say here. I've got quite a few points. I think one of the most interesting things about this case was how I felt like investigators are communicating almost through code. It's you really have to read between the lines to get what they're saying, and they almost never outright say what they're thinking. But when you put it together and I don't know, and maybe it's not reading between the lines, maybe they are just outright telling us in roundabout ways. But it was so interesting. The whole time, it felt like these investigators were really trying to communicate things that they just didn't say outright. And I think a good example of that is the reward I was talking about at the end. That combined with the backtracking of saying Adrienne's death was a homicide. Now, fun fact, Mike Pooley, who worked for the Tempe Police Department, who made that statement, who said, this is a homicide, and then he backtracked and said, no, this isn't a homicide. We need to find out the cause of death. He's now the chief of police in Apache Junction, which is just weird, just a little side bit there. But overall, reading the FBI's verbiage for the reward, $20,000 for the person responsible for her death, that also, of course, leads to a conviction, along with them backtracking this homicide comment, it almost felt like they were trying to scream to us that this is a homicide, and they just can't say it. For some reason, their hands are tied. They don't want to outright and say that this was a homicide. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You guys tell me, maybe I'm wrong. I could be. It just feels like there's a lot of really passionate people involved in this case who want to say more than they can. Now let's talk about media discrepancies, which I have been getting so much positive feedback about. You guys seem to love me talking about media discrepancies, so thank you for that. I really enjoy it because I think it's important to be an informed true crime, content consumer. I think that it just helps a lot in really understanding these cases, not just what one article or one program is going to tell you. Now, the first thing I have on here is the frustration about the conflicting statements about Brian Patrick Miller. And I will say that it could just be, in certain cases, the way that things were edited. You guys, I am tired. But there were direct conflicting statements about Brian Patrick Miller. Yes, it does seem consistent with what he does. No, it does not seem consistent with what he does. So I know I always say it, take that for what you will. And I suspect that as you guys listen to that part about Brian Patrick Miller, you're going to notice that I left out a lot of parts that the media seems to hype up about him that I don't find relevant. I will not use his bullshit names that he made up for himself or that the media gave him. I don't want to talk about his stupid car and the way that it was dressed up or his costumes. I don't care. I don't care, and it's not relevant to Adrienne's case. It's just not. All it does is inflate his ego. So I will say again for the record that Brian Patrick Miller is just a nerd and a monster and doesn't deserve that type of hype. Now, I want to talk about the hero of this episode, and I think I'm going to move it here to the after show. I think that it just makes more sense here. Sometimes when I do the hero of the episode, it feels like I'm detracting from the story, and I never want to do that, and I think that it just belongs here. So our hero of this episode is the person who reported Adrienne's crash and tried to check on them. Okay, I shouldn't say Adrienne's crash. We don't know for sure it was her. There was about 4 minutes between her leaving the house and getting in the crash, so I do think that it's very likely. But again, we do not know for sure that it was her driving. But the person who reported that crash and tried to check on the driver is our hero of the episode. Not only is that person awesome for having compassion and honestly taking the risk of going up to a random person in the middle of Tempe in the middle of the night. It's not always safe, I'll just say that. Really in Phoenix, Tempe, in the Valley Metro area, you just got to be a little careful. So shout out to that person for being brave, for doing that, for leading with compassion. I am glad that you are safe. But also, I want to point out what a huge difference that made in this case. The fact that the police have that 911 call and they have that timeline is so valuable, especially because Adrienne's car wasn't found until Sunday, right? So, without that phone call, that timeline would look very different. I'm sure they would have still found her car, but they wouldn't have known when her tires went flat. And let's be real, that car didn't go very far from the crash site. It's been described as a few blocks away, as around the corner. It was right there. So, since this wonderful person, our hero of this episode, called it in, we have that timestamp and a better timeline for this case. And who knows? At some point, it could make all the difference. For now, it makes a huge difference, but, who knows? Down the line, it could lead to cracking this case. So thank you to our hero of the episode. I don't know who you are. You have been described as a Starbucks worker, but since you were in your car and not at work, I didn't want to describe you that way, so I hope that that's okay. And thank you again for being our hero of this episode. Now on to our segment of hope. And this, you guys, I'm going way back in time for this one. Not the article, but let me explain. So I am reading from Fox59.com. This is from Gabriel Castillo, and the title says, Remains of Indiana Woman Who Died in 1866 Found in Illinois Home. This says human remains found inside the wall of a home in the far west suburbs of Chicago in the late 1970s have finally been identified. According to Kane County Coroner Robert Russell, the remains were found in November 1978 by a couple who was remodeling their home in Illinois. During the remodel, they found what they believed to be a jawbone on the inside of their home and contacted police. Officers come out, they find a partial skull that had been lodged in the wall. I mean, absolutely horrific stuff. At that time, it looks like they were really only able to find out that this skull, may have belonged to a woman who was in her mid-20s at the time of her death, and that they were much older than the discovery date. By 1979, the case went cold. And it looks like for some reason the skull was sent to a museum, and it was rediscovered by museum supervisors doing an inventory audit in March 2021. So they tell the authorities, like, hey, we have this skull, which wasn't entirely uncommon in museums, not to go on a tangent, but unfortunately this type of stuff happens. But yeah, I mean, essentially, they sent it off for testing. And they find that the skull belonged to Esther Granger from Maryville, Indiana. And you guys, they were able to get in touch with her family. Apparently, a second great-grandson named Wayne. And by testing Wayne and testing the DNA in the skull, they made the match. Now, they believe that she was 17 when she died, again in 1866. And it's further believed that she died from complications during childbirth. But of course, the question is, why is it in this wall? Why is it lodged in this wall? Why is somebody trying to hide her? Well, they theorize that she was likely a victim of a grave robbery, or that a doctor might have purchased her corpse for study, which again, yes, was something that did happen. But in the end, they did lay her to rest. I get so emotional. I just think it's amazing. It's been so long. And I know it's not your typical true crime story, but a crime was obviously committed here. And this poor woman, depending on what you believe, of course, I just think it's so amazing to see when remains are laid to rest in a respectful way versus, how her remains had been for so many years. My goodness, over a century. Again, she did die in 1866. And finally, after all these years in 2024, she was identified and laid to rest. So don't ever tell me again that old cases cannot be solved, because they can. But as always, thank you, I love you, and I'll talk to you next time.